All right. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? Thumbs up, sideways, down, a lot of ups, one down. I hope that guy got a cup of coffee. So, welcome to Grace. My name's Joseph. If we've never met before, which is a high likelihood, that's because I'm not from here. I'm actually from our Akron East campus. I'm an intern there. And Aaron surprisingly needs a week off once in a while. And so he called me up and said, "Hey, man, can you give me a break?" And I said, "I guess so." So I came down, and I'm actually super stoked to be here. One thing that's really cool about, if you don't know this about Grace, is our intern and resident program creates opportunities and pathways for young people looking to get into ministry to do what the Lord's called them to do. And I just personally have been super blessed by that experience. And I know you guys don't know me super well, but I'd hope to connect in the lobby and learn a thing about you and share some time together. One thing, if you talk to me for about more than 5 minutes, you'll find out is that I am somebody who I would just describe as rough and tumble. I grew up not really inside. I was always outside, always in the mud, loved football on pavement, so that was a good decision for my health, I think. And then I also wrestled. Well, later in life, there's not as many opportunities to put on the pads and play football, so I got into a thing called jiu-jitsu. So I do some martial arts and things like that. And I actually got a funny story about this. So this is about a year ago. I was training and get on the mats, and we were playing a game. It was just King of the Hill. So every sport ever has a version of King of the Hill. But in jiu-jitsu, the King of the Hill we were playing went a little something like this. So they'd give a guy a towel, and he'd put it in the back of his pants. And another guy would take a towel and put it in the back of his pants. And you had to wrestle around each other to see who could pull the other guy's towel. So I'd get up there, and honestly, I was cooking people. I was up there, and I was just snagging towels left and right. If there was money to be won, I was going to walk out a millionaire that day. And then all of a sudden, I hear, and this 6'6", 350-pound silverback gorilla-looking guy steps onto the mat, and I realize very quickly I am in trouble because this guy walks on, and he begins to wrestle and roll with other guys, and he's snagging towels because they just can't get around him. He's so wide, he's so big, he's so dense. People are trying to go under, and he would just jump on them, drop all 350 pounds on. I think I watched a 130-pound kid just get squashed. I don't know if he had ribs after that. Another kid tried to go around, and the dude just took one hand and threw them. It was real David and Goliath type stuff. So I walk on, and I'm like, ruh-roh. We're starting to get after it, and I'm trying to decide how I want to go about this, how I want to get this towel from this guy, and how I want to attack him. And I just decided at some point that going around is not an option. I didn't feel like having a silverback hand just claw me in the face. I didn't think getting around his legs was going to be an option. I thought the only way to win is through. And so I dive between his legs. I grab the towel. I feel it in my hand, and then 350 pounds just drops right on my chest. I think I rib cracked. I don't know. I probably should have had that checked out. But I'm stuck in this moment. And what I realized really quickly is I don't know if I like jiu-jitsu as much anymore. But I'm laying there, and there's this second where I have a towel in his hand and all of his weight on me. And I have two choices. Option one is I can hold on to this towel, and the second he gets up, I keep it. I won the roll. The other option is I let go of the towel, let him get his weight off of me, and find quick relief, but he won. Now, that story's silly, and it tells you a little bit. I actually did end up holding onto the towel. I won the roll. And that story's silly and is kind of emblematic of the types of situations I find myself in more often than I care to admit. But it actually illustrates a bigger truth or a bigger reality that I want to talk about today. In the middle of that wrestle, in the moment where I'm holding the towel and all of his weight is on me, it required one thing specifically. It required a word we call perseverance. Perseverance. And in our series lately, when you've been talking through spiritual battles or unseen battles, we need to talk about this idea of perseverance. Because you can stack weeks on weeks on weeks of thinking about spiritual things. You can stack weeks on weeks on weeks of looking for the ways the enemy might be trying to attack you and take you out. But if you're not aware of the fact that what you will need in your spiritual life is perseverance, you will find yourself in that tension of 350 pounds on your weight, and it feels like a silverback staring down at you more often than you can count, and we won't know what to do. So today I want to talk a little bit about perseverance, because not only do you find it situation to situation, it invades every corner of our lives. I needed it in that moment with that role with that guy, but honestly, guys, I see this in every aspect of life. In relationships, I actually, shameless plug, I'm engaged, I'm getting married in the fall, and my fiance lives in Nashville. I don't know what you know about long-distance relationships. Perseverance. It is like constant going back and forth and long nights and long phone calls. It's perseverance. If you have tough family dynamics, showing up to Thanksgiving is an act of perseverance. If you own a business or you work in a business or whatever, that takes perseverance to get through, because there's moments where it feels like we're not going to make it. And most importantly, it shows up in your spiritual life. It shows up in those moments when you recognize the enemy has been attacking. It shows up in moments when you're tired or you've been serving faithfully for a long time and it feels like it's time to tap out. So maybe for you found yourself in one of those examples. Maybe you found yourself in one of those lanes where you're saying, I am struggling. I feel in the tension of wanting to win and the crushing weight of the life I live. Maybe you want to do meaningful work, but you struggle to work meaningfully hard. It's difficult to put that kind of energy in. You dream of a family that is more unified, but honestly, it's very difficult to step in and have a hard conversation. Maybe you're looking and you're saying you want freedom from some sort of habit or addiction, but the journey through that and the struggle through that requires you confronting the empty parts within you demands a certain kind of energy that you just don't have. I don't know where you're at, but if you're anything like me, you see the need for perseverance. You feel the weight of that tired. You feel that void. And the truth is, relief and quick fixes is often easier than resolve, but I'm going to word it something more like this, is that what we do is we find ourselves living in a tension of wanting what's best and wanting to feel the best. That is the tension that perseverance looks to solve. And what the enemy would want you to do in a moment where you're looking and you're trying to decide which route to go, whether to tap out, whether to give up on that relationship, whether to quit that job, whether to give up hope of ever having kids, or whether you decide to keep going, pursuing what God seems to have faithfully put in front of you, pursuing restoration in broken situations, seeking healing in the broken places. What the enemy is going to want to do, and this is what Aaron's been talking about for the last couple weeks, is he's going to want to convince you to take that easy road out. He's going to want to convince you to tap out early, to do it alone, to do it apart from anybody else, and to get distracted. And so what we're going to see today is this is not a new phenomena. This is actually something that has been in humanity, and a tension we have all had to deal with of knowing when to quit from the beginning of time. From the beginning of time, we have consistently struggled to persevere. And so God has a unique thing to say into that situation, a unique solution to offer, and something for you and me today. So if you have a Bible, you can turn to 1 Peter chapter 1. And I'm going to be showing you verses 3 through 9. If you don't have one, there's one under the chairs. I don't go here, but I'm going to say you can keep those, because if you need a Bible, you should keep that. What we're going to see is an early believer in Jesus, his name's Peter, telling a group of believers going through a very difficult time how to choose the road less traveled. Peter has seen everything. He's seen all sorts of persecution. He watched Jesus die, or get dragged away to die, and then watched him come back from the dead. So Peter has just seen everything. And he's writing to a group of people who are ready to tap out. who are ready to give up, and he's trying to help them stay in the fight. And he says this: all praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. It is by his great mercy that we have been born again, because God raised Jesus Christ from the dead. Now we live with great expectation, and we have a priceless inheritance, an inheritance that is kept in heaven for you, pure and undefiled, beyond the reach of change and decay. And through your faith, God is protecting you by his power until you receive this salvation, which is ready to be revealed on the last day for all who see. So be truly glad. There's a wonderful joy ahead, even though you must endure many trials for a little while. It's really fascinating because what Peter does is he wants people to start shifting their focus. We can get caught in understanding the tension we live in, but Peter's going to say, look up. Look up at God and look at his character, and that will give you what you need to persevere in the hardship. He appeals to three things, and those are three things we can hold on to dearly, and they're characteristics of God. Because what Peter is asserting is that perseverance comes from remembering God is for you in all of your circumstances. And if you're going to remember that God is for you in all of your circumstances, you have to know who he is. You have to see him plainly and understand his character and his heart for you. See, it says, all praise to God the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. It is by his great mercy that we have been born again, because God raised Jesus Christ from the dead. See, what Peter wants people to see is, first and foremost, before anything else, God is merciful towards you. But when he sees the reality of your situation, God is not foreign to the struggles we find ourselves living in. He's not foreign to the pain you find in your life. But he's also not apathetic towards them. He doesn't see them and just like hands off the whole thing. He sees them and he pours his heart out towards that. There's a story in John where Jesus encounters a widow who just lost her son, and it says his whole heart went out to her. And that's how God feels towards you, is that he sees you in your circumstance, and he has a deep empathy that is extended in the middle of your circumstance. It's so easy to say, God, it's my fault that fell apart. I ruined that opportunity. And Peter's like, no, look. That God is merciful. He doesn't throw that mistake back in your face. He doesn't call any situation unredeemable. He's a God of mercy. But he's not just a merciful God who sees things. What Peter's going to say is that God also protects people. If you are going to persevere to the end, you have to know that it's going to come by the power of God helping you persevere to the end. It's going to come by God protecting you from things that you cannot see. The work of the devil is that the devil has already lost, and he is on a scorched earth play. If you don't know what that means, it means he is on his way out, and he's just trying to destroy everything he can, and that includes you. And so what God does is there's ways we can't see where the devil is trying to throw schemes and situations and spiritual realities into your life that dishearten you, that drain you of life, that rob you of joy and peace. And the God of the universe in unseen ways wraps his arm around you. In unseen ways holds you tight in an embrace that is filled with love and mercy. God sees you. He's merciful towards you. He protects you. And most importantly, I think this is the third one, the fourth characteristic of God, that if we lose, we will lose perseverance with it, is God actually produces something from the difficulty we face. Peter wants us to see that God is not a God who will not do something with our pain. That when you present the realities of your life in front of him, he will take that difficulty and turn it into something good. So we can stay in the fight knowing that whatever is put in front of you, whatever setback is put in front of you, whatever trying situation is put in front of you, if you walk through that faithfully, and even if you take blows on the back or insults to your face, God is going to do something and produce a good work out of that. He's going to produce a life from within you that spreads love and joy and peace to the people around you. Do you want that kind of life? Because all of this comes from people who have chosen to persevere. God does this for those who have chosen to run his race faithfully. And if you're going to run that race, you have to remember that God who sees you is merciful, who protects you, and will produce something in power for you, loves you in all of your circumstances. That's what Peter's trying to hit on. And this is not just some fluff that Peter made up out of nowhere. He watched it. He watched it right in front of him. He followed Jesus for 3 years, who was God put on flesh, and watched that God persevere through hardship that we cannot comprehend. We can't comprehend the difficulty that Jesus endured on the way to the cross. None of us, I don't know your story, but I'm going to guess that most of us have never been publicly mocked in front of an entire city. Maybe you've been mocked in front of your community. And Jesus comforts you because he knows what that's like. Most of us have never been lashed and whipped to a point where we're near death. Maybe you've been hit and abused. Jesus is for you, and he sees you, and he knows what that's like. Many of us have not had a slow, gregariously difficult walk to our death. Maybe you've had a life that feels that way, but Jesus knows what that's like. And Peter watched that play out and watched that Jesus persevere by calling on his Father, by calling on a God who he knew was good, by calling on a God he knew was merciful and loving and compassionate and kind. And he didn't do it for a selfish reason, to achieve some goal that he thought was worth for himself. It says he did it for the joy set before him, which was you. Jesus persevered from a loving heart, and he endured the greatest punishment of all time because he saw you as the greatest prize. Man, I skipped a ton of slides. Sorry, guys. But here's the reality, is all of that serves as a signpost in history that points to God and says he loves you and he is with you in the middle of your difficult circumstance. And if you're going to persevere, it's because that God who has persevered is with you. That's what Jesus did. So now I have to see, look, now you get to see all the things that should have been slides, but I just did not click. That's okay. Bang, there's that one and that one. Man, this one was going to be really cool if I had hit the slide right when I was supposed to. But then what's interesting, so Peter says all of this, and this has big realities for your life. The understanding that God is for you is a big deal in the middle of your difficult circumstances. But then James will come in in a different book, and he kind of concises all this into a way that I think you can put into practice this week. Because it's easy to hear me say this and be like, yeah, Joe, you understand, like, life sucks sometimes, and it's hard to walk day to day. It's hard to roll out of bed. I hate when my alarm clock goes off, and the cup of coffee doesn't do its job anymore, or whatever. And I get that God loves me, and I understand that God is for me, but what can I do with that? How can I tangibly sink my teeth into that in a way that makes sense for my life? Well, James is going to say this. He says this in James 1, Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind comes your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. When your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. So it's interesting. This version that we're reading here would say, consider it an opportunity for great joy. That's how James would see the trials and tribulations we face, knowing that God is going to produce something good. There's other versions that would say, consider it all joy. Rather than an opportunity, they'd say, consider your circumstances joy. See that there is something that will come out of it that produces a life that you desire. Another version that I really, really love put words it this way. They say, count it all joy. Count it all joy. And the reason I love that is because what James is doing is he's inviting you to audit your life. Inviting you to audit the circumstances, inviting you to audit the difficulties that you face day to day. And what he's going to say is that if you audit those things, on the other side, you will see that you will be experiencing a spiritual maturity that lacks nothing. And when you think about counting something, you might be thinking of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that number after 6 if you have youngins. But my fiance actually has taught me a different way of thinking about counting because my fiance is an accountant. So they literally put that word in the job description. So she goes and she'll do these inventories. So she'll walk into these big warehouses and there's just rows and rows and stacks of pallets of goods, of crazy things. And so she has to go in with a pen and a paper. And when she does a count, it's really different. Rather than saying, here's all of what you have, she has to count what comes in and she has to count what goes out to make sure that there's no fraud going on. And I think that the kind of counting that James is inviting us into today is to do that kind with our life. To see the trials and the circumstances that come into our life, and then to also acknowledge the fruit and goodness that can come out the other side. This is not James telling you, just be more optimistic about your life. Just put a smile on your face. Just trudge through. Just keep chugging. No, he's going to say, look, see what God is doing. See what God wants to produce by looking at what comes in and knowing what will come out. And the way we can do that is by asking a few simple questions. The first one is what is God building in you right now? Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? What if you started to ask, what is God trying to do in the middle of this? What is God trying to produce or call me to in this life of difficulty I face? Because the reality is, your circumstances will change you as a person. We've all faced difficulties that shape how we interact with future difficulties. But if you dedicate yourself to pursuing God, to running his race, that God who is merciful sees you, protects you, he will then produce something in you that makes you look more like him. That's the full maturity that James is talking about. And it's not just joy. It's much more than that. See, look, in Galatians 5:22-23, it says this. It says that it'll produce love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. All of these things are produced in your life as God is working in the midst of your difficulty. Honest question. When you live out the rest of your life and you die and there's a gravestone above where your body's buried, who would love these words to be on that stone? That man was loving. That woman was joyful. They were always filled with peace. They were patient beyond measure. They were kind when it was hard to be kind and good when it was hard to be good. They were faithful when nobody else was. They were gentle when being harsh would have been so much easier. And they were self-controlled when other things vied for their life and attention. Who wants that on their gravestone? The only way it gets there is by pursuing God in the midst of your difficulties and allowing him to produce these on the other side. Here's a from my life, just candidly, I didn't know Jesus till I was 21 years old. So I grew up in a super non-Christian environment, and I had a whole set of assumptions about how to live my life. I had a whole worldview that was like, hey, go out and party, make a bunch of money so you can party some more. Don't be tied down to any one person. Live a fun-filled life. And what was really interesting was after I accepted Jesus, somebody had promised me a full life. I went, I want that. And what was interesting, I was like, I want that full life, but I didn't realize that would come with a lot of confrontation, and that confrontation would come with a lot of difficulty. For me to become a person who could love other people, I had to confront the areas where me not loving other people had caused pain and strife, and there was a persevering through that was necessary. For you to become the person that God wants you to become, you will have to walk through some difficult things. And there's moments that are hard to understand because there's spiritual realities happening that we cannot see. But a simple way to start aiming our lives and our hearts towards this and to embracing this is to do a little thought experiment. I put it like this. It's to say to yourself, here's the realities of my circumstance, and I am experiencing blank, but I am becoming this. I am experiencing great loss. I'm experiencing great grief, but I'm becoming a person who's satisfied, who has great joy in the midst of loss. I am experiencing a loss of control as my kids go and do whatever they want with their life, but I'm becoming a person of great peace. I'm experiencing pushback from my neighbors who don't know Jesus, but I'm becoming the person who's faithful in the middle of that circumstance. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, I just really hope you'd hear this and know that you're invited into this kind of dynamic with God. Many of us, if you're not a follower of Jesus, would feel like you're just stepping one day at a time, trying to make it through until you close your eyes and they don't open anymore. But the gift of God is that the dead, dying, decaying areas of our life are given life, and the hardship is given purpose. And that only comes from following the Jesus who's proven he's done it before and he'll do it again. So what I'd love you to do is right now, I don't know your circumstance. I don't know what it's like to be closer to the end of life than the beginning of life. I don't know what it's like for kids to leave the house. But what is that for you? What is the experience? Where is the tension? And can you do this? Can you see those trials as coming in, but God's faithfulness in producing something coming out? Because perseverance comes from remembering that God is for you in all circumstances. And so the band's going to come up here in a minute, and we are going to have some time to think about this. What that could do in your life if you were a person who persevered, who saw your trials as having purpose and meaning. And then I would invite you to go one step further and to dream of what God could do if we all embrace this. Because when groups of people persevere together, God does tremendous things. As you begin to develop hope for hopeless situations, we become a pillar of hope in a community together. And if we want to be a group of people that sees God move, we will need each of you to persevere in your life. Because perseverance comes from remembering God is for you in all circumstances. Thanks, guys.